Hello, I'm Steve Goldsmith. I'm a professor of government at Harvard's Kennedy School and director of the Innovations in American Government program. We're continuing our discussions with innovative mayors across the United States, their observations about how they brought value to their communities. Today I'm with one of the country's leading mayors, Mayor Shirley Franklin from Atlanta in her 7th year, who's done a range of interesting activities and progress brought to her city, from solving stormwater problems to resolving many of the issues of homelessness. But today we're going to deal with a particular element of change, which is how a mayor indirectly, without actual authority, affects reform in institutions which make a big difference in their community. We're going to talk about the court system. So thanks for being with us, Mayor Franklin.
Thank you.
So reforming the city's court system was one of your top priorities upon entering the mayor's office. Tell us a little bit first about the context and why it was so important. What were some of those challenges?
Well, when I came into office, there was a lot of discussion among the legal community about how dysfunctional our court system is. And in fact, the city of Atlanta had developed a two-court system, a municipal court system. One was a traffic court and one was other municipal offenses. And no one could really remember why these two systems operated. But by the time I came into office, between the two, they were operating in two different buildings, and all of the expenses associated with that. And additionally, it was costing the city about $40 million a year to operate these courts. You'll recall I came in during the recession in 2002, so cost savings was at the top of my list. But the biggest impetus for making these changes really was increasing customer service. So what we needed to do was to assess best practices and then bring those best practices to Atlanta. And I couldn't do that alone, so I went outside of city government and invited a group of attorneys and legal professionals to come in and do about a 10-month study of how our courts were operating, and then to help us identify where we'd find best practices. It was among the hardest things that we had to undertake because both courts had 9 judges who were elected by the people of Atlanta to serve. And as the third branch of government had been accustomed to not having a mayor have a heavy or light hand in their operations.
So how did you get the cooperation of the judges? I mean, what did you just announce the task force, or what did you do to kind of start the process?
Well, to start the process, we named an outside task force. 2 private practicing attorneys, assistant dean at one of the law schools, a very well-known litigator who was about to retire from one of our top law firms, a small minority practitioner as well. And we said to them, just go in and just give us some ideas. 5-6 months later, they came back and had a sense that the court system was dysfunctional because it had not really been planned. Its operations had not been planned. The judges were very upset with us, and many of them threatened to sue. But instead of backing down at that point, we brought in the National Association of State Courts, asked them to take a look at the preliminary studies, just kept working behind the scenes, and then I convened a meeting of as many judges who would come, I think it was about 10 at the time, and laid out for them the findings before I announced them to the public, and it was pretty devastating. The courts were overstaffed and underperforming, and indeed in great need of reform. And many of the judges in that meeting almost shouted me down and said there was no way we could do this. But we used the budget process to basically downsize the expenditures, which again the judges appealed to our council members. But the facts by that time had been pretty well laid out by one of our consulting groups, which is Boston Consulting Group, and the National Association. So we were building a case for change, first with a small committee, then with outside consultants who were pro bono, and then with a national association giving us advice and counsel along the way. Ultimately, we had to go to the General Assembly, the state of Georgia, and abolish one of the courts. By that time, we had built a great deal of support, primarily in the legal community, but then added to that by taxpayers who were concerned that perhaps this was a wasteful operation, not wasteful in its mission, but wasteful in its day-to-day operations.
So you had used a little bit of budget authority, a little bit of public communication, and a little bit, I guess, of the other branch, the legislative branch at the state and local level. Your city council had budget authority over the judges?
Yes, we had budget authority over the judges. But remember, the whole idea was not to really embarrass anyone, but to present a better way of operating. And now we went from 18 judges and associated staff. We've reduced that down to 9, and in the coming budget we're going down to 7. So prior to coming into office, the city built a court building with 13 courtrooms, of which we only need 7. We brought people along slowly. It took us 2 years to fully implement the changes that we identified in the first 5 or 6 months. So we took our time, and we tried not to use a sledgehammer, but rather to use reason, facts, research, best practices to change attitudes internal to government, and to use the public's interest in having a more effective government to influence and to insist on this change.
So I take it that there was no delay in the processing of the cases as a result of the consolidations, right?
No, as a matter of fact, the processing has improved. We now have a fully functioning, paperless court system. So for the savings, we reinvested in upgrading the technology and really the customer service side of the operation, and we still save millions of dollars every single year. But that was not the primary goal. The primary goal was to improve the general operations and customer service.
So a number of other mayors and local officials kind of look at these examples, including what you've done. So what 1 or 2 lessons to folks who want to emulate you would you take from this experience?
I would say that, number one, that even in a case where the authority doesn't seem to be direct, like a court system, that the mayor can influence, can use influence, in our case, facts, research, and outside influencers like the legal community. So don't shy away from those areas where you don't have direct influence. Number 2, it does take time. None of these initiatives that we've undertaken were possible in 2 or 3 months. I mean, announcing it one day and thinking you can get it done in 2 or 3 months, I've not found that to be the case. It's taken us at least 10 months, and most of the time over the course of 2 years or so, to really implement the changes. And third, even if we know the right answer to start out with, there is great benefit in engaging people outside of government, whether it's the not-for-profit sector or, in our case, consultants who came to us on a pro bono basis. They kind of give it a stamp of approval and allow you to react to everyone, both the people who are being affected directly and those of us who are trying to effect the change, to get accustomed to outside review and benchmarking and accountability standard setting and that sort of thing. If we tried to do this all internally, I don't think we would have been successful in the short order. Now, if you've got resolve over time, over 4 or 5 years, maybe so. But these outside influencers were crucial to our ability to do this without having major obstacles like a legal suit to prohibit it.
Mayor Franklin, congratulations on your success, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.